welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, delighted as always to be with you on another Tuesday with another author interview. Interesting returning guest today. We'll get to that in a minute, but as we get started, I do want to remind you, as I always do, to please like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're either listening to or watching this episode on. That really does help the algorithm get the podcast out to more listeners and readers and viewers such as yourselves. If you want to help in a monetary fashion, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net. There you can leave a tip or a donation, buy me a coffee, contribute to my next book, however you want to look at it. But it doesn't help just this podcast, it helps the network as a whole. So again, if you want to help, you can go to gsmcpodcast.net. Your support, no matter what form that support has taken over the years, is always greatly appreciated and will continue to be appreciated as we move forward with the podcast. So how was your week? How was your weekend? How are things going in general? How is it the middle of September? I blink and I feel like a month goes by just every time I blink. I don't know if you're feeling that way, but I certainly am. Had a productive weekend of teaching. Lots of students are trying to get in the classes that they need to do by September 30th on one of the platforms that I teach on. So there's been some procrastination, I think, which I totally get, being a procrastinator at times myself. But it's been fun to spend time with my students. Let's talk about our author today. So I have returning author Russell Little joining the podcast. Again, he was here 11 months ago, last year in October, to talk about both Murder for Me and Murder by Storm, which are the first two books in his series. That is the tip and donation video. You probably noticed that. He is here to talk again about Murder by Storm. This is the first returning author I've had come on to talk about the same book twice, which is kind of fun and an interesting challenge for me. So I was happy to have Russell back on. When I found out that he was coming back to talk about Murder by Storm, I said, what do you want to talk about? How do you want to approach it? He gave me some options. We put together some topics, and we're going to go into things in a little bit more detail or depth than we did the first time he was here. First time we talked about both Murder for Me and Murder by Storm. Today we're talking more about Murder by Storm, but also about writing and about a lot of other things. So let me give you the description of Murder by Storm. Marilyn is a master of deception, a chameleon living multiple lives to shield her sweet son while ensnaring naive couples in her web of schemes across Houston, Texas. Free from the clutches of the law, she weaves her plans with calculated precision. But shadows from her past loom large, her deranged mother and subservient stepfather relentlessly badgering her with their fearful questions. And then there's O.C. Sims, the disgraced police detective obsessed with bringing her down. Fired for failing to catch her, Sims is haunted by the belief that Marilyn murdered her lover and lawyer, Ed. He's relentless, determined to hunt her until he's either vindicated or dead, defying his former captain's orders. As a hurricane bears down on Houston, Marilyn sees both a threat and an opportunity. The storm's fury will devastate the city, creating chaos and diverting attention. Amid the tempest's destruction, she crafts her most daring plan yet, aiming to exploit the storm to erase all traces of her crimes. But Sims remains undeterred, a relentless force pursuing her through the floodwaters. Can Marilyn turn the storm to her advantage, keeping the police at bay and obliterating the evidence? Will she slip through the cracks of justice once more? In this high-stakes game of cat and mouse, the storm is just the beginning. Dive into a crime thriller where every moment is a battle for survival and every decision could be her last. And so again, that's the description of Murder by Storm. That's the second book. We're talking more about that book today. I'll link the first interview at the end of this, or I'll link that to this video. So if you want to go back and watch or listen to that interview with Russell, you will have that link. Lots of topics that we're going to cover today. And so I'm just going to jump into that interview so that you can hear Russell talk more about Murder by Storm and the series, etc. Again, Murder for Me and Murder by Storm. The author is Russell Little. Hi, Russell. Welcome back to the podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. It's like seeing an old friend.
Yeah, I know. I'm happy to have you back. I was just saying, it's been 11 months. since you were so
person in life than the
well.
one that's now,
So
as you know.
you're reintroducing yourself even to people who heard the last interview. Can you share a little bit about your life and what's been going on with you in the last 11 months?
Well, in the last, well, as of February of this year, I thought I was living in Atlanta for the next few years in a cool house underneath the forest on the side of a mountain on the north side of the Chattahoochee River.
Sounds nice.
And within weeks, I found out that within weeks we would be moving to Houston, where all my kids are, because it's crazy. So now we live in Houston, and we've already bought a house, but we've ripped everything out of that, and we live in apartments, and it's crazy life.
Wow.
I
Um,
love it. And we've
you,
been to Europe twice. I had two sons get married.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw some pictures. We are friends on Facebook. I just now remembered. Yeah, I saw some of the wedding pictures. Those looked lovely.
Oh,
And
yes.
to
One
add
of
to
my
the chaos, you have a puppy.
Oh, yeah. She's the most beautiful thing ever. She is a British cream retriever,
Oh,
which is like a golden retriever, but lazier and
oh,
bigger.
okay. Oh, sure. But golden retrievers have a lot of energy, so is lazier better?
Oh, yeah. I want a couch potato.
Yeah.
I believe in couch potatoes.
I enjoy a good couch potato session. Um,
Yes.
See, I also have a 10-month-old puppy, but he's a Chihuahua, so he is about the size of your dog's head.
Or less. Because cream retrievers have big block brick heads,
Okay.
big flat. So he or she probably weighs much less than my girl.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, they're like my mother had one once. If you looked at my mother cross-eyed, the Chihuahua would go crazy barking. Did yours do that?
We try to keep the barking at a minimum, but they think they're big dogs. So I have an 11-year-old and a 10-month-old, and the 11-year-old has always thought he could take on any dog. Just let me at him, Mom. I got this. No, you're a snack. And so, well, you are an interesting guest for many reasons, but for today's purposes, you're an interesting guest because you're my first guest to come back to talk about the same book twice, which is very cool.
Okay.
Um,
And a challenge.
what's that? It's a challenge?
And yeah, it's a
Yeah.
challenge
Yeah, it is
because
a
you're
challenge. It's
trying
a
to make
different
your
challenge.
show different
Right.
and interesting. Though I got to tell you, uh, I've done an author talk. It's a show for like 9 years,
Hmm.
and uh, the test isn't whether we've had an author back to talk about a different book or not, but it's how interesting is the author? How because are they fun to interview? Do they talk, or do they give you the one answer questions like I
Right.
threatened to do
Right.
today?
Yes, the one word answers. Well, when I saw you on my schedule and then we talked about which book we were talking about, I was like, it's a different challenge, but I'm not worried about it because I have no worries that you will find things to talk about. So let's start. So there's two books currently in the series, Murder for Me and Murder by Storm. So let's just start with the series as a whole. Can you give an overview for people who aren't familiar?
Yes, it's basically a psychotic thriller that is a struggle between a comical know-it-all detective and a psychopath that always is three chess moves ahead of him. And I've actually lived with this woman in my mind for 15, 20 years now. And in fact, last year when we were going to Paris, my wife asked, "Can we leave Marilyn at home?" Marilyn is the antagonist.
Yes.
"Can we leave her at home? Do we have to take books so you can take a picture of Marilyn on the cover or different places? Can we just leave that woman here and just the two of us go on vacation?"
Although, with all the pickpocketing in Europe and now the pickpockets are upset because the Americans are like pushing back, Maryland would be great to have for pickpockets, like to just take care of you.
I've never had trouble with pickpockets in Europe. Uh, I do know when it's like when you roam through Italian streets, Roman streets, like that, and when you see certain crowds or certain entertainers where there's crowds assembling, you know that those are targets, so you move along.
Yep.
So I've never had, even at the fountains
Okay.
in Rome, which is one of the main places, I've never had problem with them. Maybe I just don't look like a target, but we've
Maybe.
never had any
That's
problems.
good. That's very good. Didn't fully expect to be talking about pickpockets in Europe during this interview, but you know what? That's what I like about interviews. I never quite know what I'm going to be speaking about with any given author. It's a lot of fun. It's fun to be surprised and never quite know what might come up. At any rate, we are going to take our first break of this episode. When we come back, more about Marilyn as the antagonist, how she came to be, how she came to have a much larger role in this series than originally planned. You are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Russell Little. This is your second and final reminder that if you want to help out the podcast and the network as a whole in a financial or monetary fashion, you can go to gsmcpodcast.net. There you can leave a tip, a donation, however you want to, whatever you want to call it. You're going to see that playing in the video next to me, but of course it's also scrolling throughout the episode down toward the bottom. If you need a reminder that link is gsmcpodcast.net. Thank you again, and as always, for all of your support. Before the break, we were talking about pickpockets, of all things. We're talking about thrillers and crime novels, so pickpockets seem fitting in some ways. But let's go ahead and return to the interview with Russell. Marilyn is the antagonist, and she wasn't actually supposed to have as big of a role as she has in these books. She apparently has taken up space in your brain and said, Russell, I need more page time. Talk about how she's evolved.
Okay, well, in the first book, which has never been published, and it turned out to be more of a character development than a book, she was a mere shadow. She was a mere shadow of the lawyer starting to have emotional mental breakdowns. But the more I wrote about the shadow, the more Marilyn appeared to me very specific. I know exactly what she looks like. And that was even before the second book, which Murder by Storm, the real point of Murder by Storm is so when you finish the book, you say, okay, I get it. I understand why Marilyn does what she does.
Mm-hmm. But we're not done with Marilyn. We're not, but there's more coming. So what can we expect? Obviously, we don't want spoilers, but what can we expect from Marilyn in the future?
Well, the next book is Murder by Trial, so that should tell you.
Okay.
And Murder by Trial is, I've always wanted to write a trial book. I've always wanted to write a book about the whole myth of known facts. You know, when the public here's the outcome of a jury trial. Every once in a while, you'll hear people say, "I can't believe a jury could do that." The thing is that there are a set of facts that the public, that people think they know, and there's another set of facts that sometimes are completely different. That a few of the lawyers, a few of the police, and the judge know. And then there's a whole third set of facts that the jury hears and makes their decision on. And sometimes those sets of facts don't even relate. I won one of my first jury trials by making sure the jury didn't know what the facts were. Uh, and so I wanted to write about that. So that's one of the things I'm writing about. And then I don't know if you've ever heard of Dunces of the Confederacy. It was a Pulitzer Prize winning book from the 20s. Have you read
But
it?
haven't read it.
You should read it. There is the main protagonist slash antagonist. He's both. He is so socially repugnant that you just can't believe it while you're reading, but you can't forget the character. He's so unusual. And I've always wanted to write a character like that. And it took me until like chapter 6 in the book. All of a sudden, I found him. And I have this character now, and I'm very excited about writing about this character. So that's the next story.
Okay. So very good with the teasers and the no, like, yeah, those are definite teasers because you gave us just enough, but not
I
too
didn't mean
much.
to.
Nicely
I'm just
done.
if you should read Dungeons of the Confederacy though. It's the first 2/3 of the book is great. Then the last third, he can't end it. And that's one of the problems with books, to end a book correctly. He
Yeah.
can't end it. That's why it took him so long to get published.
Okay. Well, so what about a series? Is that easier or harder then for endings? Like, is it harder to end a whole series than it is to end a single novel? What do you think?
Uh, you know, since I plan my books, and when you sent the link for this interview, you sent this question. Since I plan my books, it usually isn't. As you know, as I described last time, I'm constantly rewriting the outline to get to it, which in the next book has become complete chaos because now that I found this incredible character
Right.
who was only in the outline a minor member of the jury, but now this is a character that I want to emphasize. So the whole outline's screwed.
Do you think that, okay, so that happened with Marilyn too. So Marilyn wasn't supposed to be there, and now you've got this character. Do you think there's
Right.
some part of your brain that is trying to push you towards being more of a pantser?
No, it's not. But what it is, I'm always, every book has an intellectual challenge for me. I mean, that's the real reason I write. I mean, to be blunt with you, is I'm trying to push the walls out, the ceiling of my own person out. And as I explore it, it's like when you travel, not only do you see doors that you didn't even know existed, but you can look through the doors. As you write these books, sometimes you see windows where you didn't know there were windows, and you're able to open the windows and look out the windows. And like I finding this character now, he's like a window. I'm able to look out and explore.
Okay.
And so I didn't know it was there. There was no way to outline it before.
Right.
Marilyn was that way. Rob, this new weirdo character I'm so excited about, he's that way. He's so gross in such little ways. Let me give you one example.
Okay.
When he talks, he stands too close and he spits as he speaks. That's just who he is. It's so gross.
That is gross. I agree. Can you talk about the intellectual issue that you're writing about in book 3?
But number one, that message about the different sets of facts, right? To communicate that and where people knows it, and where people can appreciate what I'm saying.
Okay.
And that's actually not going to be as difficult as what my challenge was in the second book, which was right from a woman's perspective. So you understood why Marilyn did what she did. But that is my challenge, right?
Okay.
And to write that character. So while you're driving down the road, you think of him, even though he grosses you out.
So you
That's
want him
very
to live
important.
rent free in my brain.
Yes,
Yeah.
I want, yes, and gross you out at the same time.
At the same time. Okay. And actually, you did a nice segue into my next question, which is writing a female character like Marilyn, and that was your
Yeah.
challenge in the second book. So, was that a challenge? How did you approach that challenge? And the third question, what did your wife think of the female character?
Okay, now I have a question for
Yeah,
you. Are you a writer? Have you written from a male perspective?
I have not.
Okay. Uh, it is so hard, especially, okay, I'm going to be frank. I'm one of the reasons I'm such a good divorce attorney for all these years is I have a I have very small empathy. In other words, the whole courtroom can be freaking out, even my own client, and I'm still going to war because
Mm,
it doesn't bother me.
okay.
Well, that really came to really be one of the big walls I had to deal with from writing from a woman's perspective. I know that because my editors that helped me achieve it screamed it at me one time, even threw papers at me in the cigar bar. I had to turn around and was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "She's my editor, okay?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." Uh,
That's
so,
fabulous.
yeah, she threw papers at me. I didn't talk to her for 2 weeks, but she was right. But the point is, it's a great challenge, and you should try it. It's hard.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. But so, I mean, you are writing from the woman's perspective, but Marilyn, some might say, also lacks empathy. So was that kind of your entry point? I don't mean you lack empathy. That
Marilyn,
was not what I meant by that. I should back that up.
okay. Marilyn does not. Okay, uh, this is the answering the question, but is right off topic.
Okay.
Is I've all once when I first when Murder for Me first came out, I was asked what part of each character is a part of you, and
Mm,
I rejected that because I didn't want for some of my characters because there were so many bad things about them to be a part of me.
hmm.
But I got to tell you, it's been a few years now. There's a part of me in every one of these characters, including Marilyn.
Okay.
And that there is a lack of empathy sometimes that Marilyn has for other people is both the way I observed the psychopaths, and I've had two that I've dealt with in my life, and there's a part of me in them too. In that lack of empathy is a very small part of
Hmm.
that answer, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of not quite knowing what people might say, psychopaths, I don't know if I've ever dealt with a psychopath. If I did, I didn't know. I didn't know it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I may have encountered a psychopath. You may have encountered a psychopath. I just don't know for sure, and I'm okay with that. I think maybe it's better for my mental health to not know whether or not I dealt with a psychopath. But Russell says he has dealt with two. So that's definitely an experience that he has that I do not share in. But from psychopaths to children, that's what we're going to talk about when we come back from this next break. Writing children in thrillers, in crime fiction, finding a balance, how he goes about it, etc. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Russell Little. Before the break, we were talking about psychopaths a little bit, but also lack of empathy, also just various different parts of characters and how all of those things come together to create a full-fledged, hopefully, character that the author is trying to create. Let's go ahead and return to the conversation with Russell. And there's a child in Murder by Storm. So also talk about writing a thriller, that there's a lot of things that happen, but also including a child's perspective, keeping that balance so that as the reader, we're not tipped in one direction.
Okay.
You know, it's hard.
Right. There's two children in Murder by Storm. There's a little boy and a little girl. You're talking about the little girl. The little boy is more mysterious until you read the book, and I don't really want to talk about him.
Right.
Because he's the little boy's kind of a surprise.
Right.
The little girl is a part of the duality of the mechanism I have of the girl and the dog that I write about, that both shows the innocent part. It's part of the innocent underneath part of our daily life and how it exists at the same time as this evil, and how they, flash in the end.
Yeah.
I know that sounds weird, but that's what it's about.
You have grandchildren, right? So were any of your grandchildren inspirations for either of the children?
No.
Okay.
I write some children's books, and I write my grandchildren into those books. But no, these were, I got these kids from their tools to make a point in the story, I think is the real thing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. You need vehicles by which to move the story along and to make the points that you want so that you can show, not tell.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like the dog too. The dog is an important suspense tool, especially after what I did in the Murder for Me with another animal. It made it much more suspenseful with this dog, and I worked real hard to make the reader invested in this animal and not want anything to happen to her.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good way to anger your readers. Make them.
I know. It's very dangerous. I get more grief about the animals I write about than the people that I kill in my books.
Yeah, a lot of
way
people
more grief.
Yeah, a lot of people like animals better than people think.
Yeah. And I kind of agree. I don't know that I could read a book if you killed a dog in it. I probably would have to stop.
Yeah, I agree. Unless it's like mentioned in passing, or like even then. But if it's detail, nope, I'm done. Okay, so we had a conversation. You asked me how brave I was going to feel, but
Yeah.
so there's some spice in this book. We'll put that into book talk terms. So talk about writing sex scenes in a thriller and how you approach writing sex scenes.
Okay. First, one thing that I did not know until recently was the whole thing of romance fantasy and dark romance fantasy.
Okay, romance.
So I gotta say, and I have read in more than one place that 80% of the fiction books sold in America today are romance fantasy of one subgenre or another. Now,
Okay.
I can't believe that, but that's what I read. And I've actually talked about it and had people that know what they're talking about say, yeah, I believe it.
I could see it.
Anyway.
I don't know the number. I don't know the real number, but I could see it.
Right. So from a lot of those genres, what I write about is very easy and sweet.
Right.
But the sex when I write about it or don't write about it, I have a purpose.
Mhm.
Like in Murder for Me, sex represents the degeneration of the attorney Larry
Yep.
into his lost self.
Yep.
And so it goes from a, uh reasonable, loving sexual experience, and each one gets worse and worse. And I use that as a symbol of what's happening to me
Yeah.
until in the end it's terrible. And so that's actually, so I use sex is to tell the story, not for any other reason. Then the next book, Murder by Storm, uh, I went completely the other way. I made it a comedy, uh, a comedic relief, because I have, I have this murder thriller going on during a hurricane. There's a lot of tension. My own son told me, Dad, I can only read a few pages at a time, and then I got to rest from it. It,
Okay.
it stresses me out, Dad. So I needed to make some comedic relief. I have a couple. I have this my doofus detective uh, having and he's in his 50s, and he's having a relationship with a woman in her 40s. They're trying to start this relationship, and they're very serious and they
Mhm.
love each other, but every time they try to have sex, something happens,
Right.
and it gets more and more ridiculous what happens. They're never able to in the whole book. It's funny the way it happens. And so I use it to tell part of the story. I am not, I guess because I don't have empathy. I don't know what it is, except, but it's just a part of, I just wouldn't write about sex unless I used it as a purpose, for a
Right.
purpose.
Right. And
I think comedic relief is a weird reason to use it, but or not use it. But anyway, that's where how I use it. Murder by Storm as comedic relief.
but it does serve a purpose, and so there are books that are really just for the sex. They're just much. They're still erotica, and I as a reader prefer for it to have a purpose. If it's just, oh wait, they're at it again, I'm more likely to be like, yep, okay, yeah, okay, they're still doing it, going at it. I do occasionally like to try to figure out how is that how
I
is that gonna work? Nope, nope, not gonna.
don't know. Have you ever asked other authors that type of question as they were writing? How that
Uh,
worked. I've actually had debates over a cigar or a bourbon about uh, how you use sex and how much you should use. And I got to tell you, those are hard disagreements that uh, the outside world might think are silly, but some authors can get together and we can go at it in a disagreement about how much
sure,
sex do you put in, how detailed do you get, which words do you use, do you do the fade out or do you get specific?
right.
That's those
Closed
I've
door.
actually had all of those debates.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that would be a very interesting conversation with a group of authors. It's come up occasionally, but it's not always my go-to question, but um because it's maybe a little more unexpected in this series and the way you use it, it seemed like an interesting thing to ask. And because I never know what you're gonna say, so yeah.
Thank you.
It's good to ask questions and be like, where are we going to go with this? Do you have a timeline for murder by trial?
Uh, I did, but that outline was destroyed as I discovered
Rob.
this character Rob, right?
Okay.
And so it will be delayed because
Okay.
the whole story has changed now.
Okay.
So I don't
And
actually have it, but I can tell you I'm being yelled at about it.
sure. Has anyone thrown paper at you yet?
They have not thrown paper at me. They have given me silent treatments about it, though.
Okay.
Silent treatments are the worst.
Yeah, well, they know what buttons to push, right?
Right.
Right. This will be book three. Do you have how many books do you have in mind, or are you just going to write until they stop telling you that the characters seem to have come to a stop in their story?
I think book three will be the end of this universe.
Okay.
Uh, I that I had that character development that the first book that I wrote that was
Right.
before Murder for Me, that that is a weird, total different story. It just has these characters in it. Because remember, Marilyn's just a shadow. She's not a
Right.
human that I told you before. I thought about going back and rewriting that, but it would, it would almost be uh, writing two books, trying to rewrite that book. I don't know if
Mhm.
you've ever written something that is so messed up that you have to, that it would take twice as long to rewrite it, but that's what it is.
Right, right. That would probably be a lot of effort, and maybe frustrating effort at that point where you're trying to make it work.
Right.
Um,
And I have some other stories, and I have some more children's books in the little series that I wrote in mine. So I have lots of stuff like that.
all right, I know people do it. I know that there have been massive rewrites taking something that's already written and making major changes to it. But every time people talk about it, I just have a like wolf feeling in my stomach that seems I know once you start it's probably still a mountain of work, but it's thinking about that mountain of work that I am totally projecting about writing that, and thinking about all of those revisions and making sure everything still works and not getting completely lost in combining or, recreating something that already exists. Whew, major projection on my part. But we're going to take our last break of this episode. When we come back, we talked about children in books. Now we're going to talk about children's books. You are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and the conclusion of my conversation with author Russell Little. Before the break, we were talking about, well, I was projecting, but Russell was talking about possibilities for what he might be writing next. He's working on book 3 in this series. He's got more children's books that he is thinking about writing, and he said he's always got things kind of swimming around in his brain as possibilities for next books. But let's go ahead and return to the conversation with Russell. Can you talk a little bit about your children's books? Like, is it a series?
Yeah,
Are they
but
standalones?
they embarrass me a little bit uh, because it's so different than the other stuff that I write.
Oh, sure.
And it's, I talk about, and it's sillily emotional. The way it got started was I was invited to Grandparents' Day of my oldest granddaughter at preschool, and so they do the performance, which was awful. But all the grandparents act like it's great, and they all stand up taking their pictures, and then you go to the classrooms. And my Vivian, my granddaughter, came up to me with a stuffed elephant, said, "This is my favorite animal. I love it." And I've always been a really strong supporter of trying to help the larger fauna of Africa survive, the elephants, the hippos, the giraffes, the rhinos. Uh, and I worry that when my granddaughter is my age, they won't have survived.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went right to the cigar bar that afternoon and I wrote a little story and then about my granddaughter helping a baby elephant at the zoo that got lost.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole purpose of it is and it's a children's book to help create an affection for these magnificent animals in the next generation, right?
Yeah.
And my wife read it, said, "This is terrible." Changed a bunch of it. So we wrote these stories together that way. And they were kind of nice. And then right before we left for India, I shared it with someone and said, read these and let me know what you think when I get back. And when I got back, she said, "Oh, I'm going to put those in a book. Those were great."
Okay.
And we went from there.
Okay. But that's still a very sweet story. And off topic, what
Yeah,
is
but
your
don't tell anybody. It's embarrassing.
okay, so I won't mention it. Off topic, what is your grandpa name?
Pops.
Pops. Okay.
Because that's what my sons, when they were teenagers, called me. "Hey, Pops."
Yeah.
So the grandchildren picked it up from that.
Well, you live in Texas, so it could have been Peepaw. I mean,
I do this year.
yeah, this year. Well, but even in Georgia, you could have been Peepaw.
I'd rather shoot when my daughter asked me what I wanted to be called, I said Mr. Little. That's what I told her. She said, "No, we're going to pick your name without you if you keep saying that." I thought Mr. Little was a good grandfather name.
I am now picturing Vivian at preschool. Mr. Little, Mr. Little, come see my elephant.
When I was a lawyer, a million years ago, a young lawyer with my own practice, uh, I was also a little league coach. And another one of the teams asked if I would sponsor one of the teams. I said yes. But instead of having Russell Little, attorney at law, on the back of all their shirts, I want Russell Little, great guy. And they said, "We'll find someone else."
Yeah, I can see
I
that.
like Russell Little, great guy, on the back of all the boys' shirts. I think that
I
would
mean,
be great.
it would be, yeah, it would be nice, but I can see their point, probably.
Yeah.
Since I've seen you last, what have you been reading?
You won't believe it. Roman Republican stuff.
Oh, okay.
I've been reading about Cato. In fact, I started a new book today about uh, the antagonism between Cato and Caesar. I read a lot of Republican Roman stuff because it's a part of uh, a lot of the philosophy I read. But I'm also reading a great new book that just came out about New York City politics in the 80s, Mayor
Oh,
Koch and everything that's
yeah.
been going on. And it's actually very relevant today because Trump was everywhere. I mean,
Hmm.
that's when he really got started. So it's very relevant today. And it's very juicy and lots of gossip. It's a great book. I guess I've been reading ancient politics and just near ancient
Right.
politics.
Slightly older politics.
Right.
Oh,
But
interesting.
yeah, like the book about Caesar and Cato, it's almost like a novel because they wind up destroying the republic in their
Hmm.
battle.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. It would be very interesting, I think, actually, to read those side by side. Just there's probably some things that are gonna be relevant to the other.
Well, in fact, I in some of the philosophy discussions I've had, it's been pointed out New York City is actually the modern Rome because if the United States is the Rome of today, then New York is its capital, not its a governmental capital, but its cultural and economic financial capital.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so that would be very interesting to read those side by side. Um, website, if people want to know more about you and your books, website, and any social media that you're currently active on.
Okay, well, russelllittleauthor.com is my website where we'll have all the interviews I've had, the Fire Book Award, all the stuff about the book award I received, about the books. If you want to go to the Facebook page for as an author, Russell Stories, that's where I discuss day to day. I post what I'm reading. If I'm on an interview, how'd it go? I'll post the interviews first there. Uh, what science articles I'm reading, what I'm thinking, and it's the best place to reach out to get to me.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there anything that we haven't talked about, Russell, that you want to make sure you highlight or bring up at this time?
I do want to know what you teach in your English classes. I want to know about that.
What I
Yes.
teach? Well, that really depends on the student. So I teach from 6 to my oldest student, I think, is in their 50s. So that really depends on the student. It could be grammar, it could be conversational English. I do some business English. Um, I
Those are very different.
Yes, they're very
And
different.
what are you reading right now, Sarah?
What am I reading right now? Usually things for the podcast, of course.
Right?
And then I'm not a mood reader, but I am a theme reader in that now that it's September, I like to start reading books that are like fall or Halloween somewhere in them. So like cozy mysteries that take place around Halloween or
You like cozy mysteries.
I
See
do.
that I do too. I do too. I love cozy mysteries.
Yeah.
They're comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And you know that the crazy thing, I was trying to explain this to somebody recently, and it was one of my students actually, and she said, "But wait, isn't it still murder?" And I said, "Yes, but
But
it's
it's easy.
not scary murder."
Right.
Like there's a dead body, but it's just because that's what the character needs to have her mystery to solve or his mystery to solve.
Exactly. I love it.
Yeah. Was that abrupt? Yes, yes, it was. If you tuned into the last episode, you know that I've been having some technical issues, and unfortunately, we had one with the recording froze, and I didn't realize it until after we were already done. There was only a little bit more after that. Thankfully, we'd gotten the majority of the interview recorded. So I checked in with Russell and said, "Was there anything that we talked about?" And he asked me more questions, which I thought was really sweet. No one ever asks me questions, which is probably okay because I get awkward. But I checked in with Russell and said, "Is there anything that we talked about that you wanted me to make sure that I brought back up?" And he said, "No, but just make sure that, people know how to find me." And so his website will be linked in the description. Website will get you to social media, all of those good things. But of course, if you search for Russell Little author, or if you search for Murder by Storm by Russell Little, you're going to find his website. But I'm going to, as I said, going to link that in there. So thank you to Russell for joining me again and for putting up with what had turned out to be a very weird last bit of recording. And it wasn't weird at the time. We had a nice conversation, but then poof, gone, disappeared into the ether of the world. So thank you, Russell, for being patient. But thank you also for joining me and talking to me about so many different things. This was a much different interview than I sometimes do, and it was a lot of fun. And like I said, it was a different challenge. So hopefully you enjoyed it as well. If you're a fan of crime fiction, of course, go check out these 2 books and then look forward to Murder by Trial. Also, I want to look into Russell's children's books. I have not actually read any of them, but I think I need to go look at them and see. Also, Mr. Little. I still think that would be a hilarious grandfather name, Mr. Little. I saw a TikTok video the other day, and this guy's grandson, he's the step grandfather, and the grandson calls him Carl, I think, but that's not his name. But for some reason, he's Carl. So if he can be Carl, then Russell can be Mr. Little. Why not? At any rate, please do check out these books. If you are interested, leave reviews of those books that you love. Leave a review of this podcast as well if you are a fan. as I keep saying, it helps the algorithm. But I hope that you will join me next time for the next interview. Fingers crossed it goes fine technologically speaking, but that book is Saving Vincent. It's historical fiction. I'll be speaking with author Joan Hernandez about Saving Vincent. As you can see from that cover and the title, this has to do with Vincent van Gogh, but not exactly Vincent van Gogh, but his art and how it was promoted by his sister-in-law after his death, and the story of how she came to be in charge of his art and what she did to make it what we know it is today, because as you probably know, his art was not well received during his lifetime. It was only after his death that the art world really started paying attention to his art. And I love so much of his art, but I didn't know much about him as a person beyond the art. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Joan about this book. I hope that you will join me for that interview. In the meantime, as I said, if you're a fan of this podcast, leave that review. It's really helpful. A positive review can do more than you even know. Also, like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform you are either listening to or watching the episode on. And if you're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky. I went in the wrong order, so I don't know if I got all of them. That was weird. I usually go in an order to make sure I get all of them, but you can find me and the podcast on social media. Please do come find the podcast and ask me questions. Leave me comments. I love hearing from you. So thank you so much for any of those questions that you are about to leave me or have left me in the past. And thank you for your comments, and thank you for your support. Hope you're having a great week. I hope that every time you blink, a month doesn't go by. But if it does, you're in good company. We can be a club. But I hope that everything is going well. And my hope for you always is that no matter what's going on, no matter how fast time is flying, the world is still managing to give you plenty of time to get yourself lost in a good book. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.